AI will never release us from that human-to-human interaction, intuition, that care for one another. Also, you can't AI 30 years of experience.
We've got a great guest on today. He's been termed Africa's most influential thought leader in AI, Johan Steyn.
In the past, people were very afraid of it. A lot of it had to do with Hollywood, movies, robots, killer robots, stuff. Now, in what I call a post-ChatGPT world, we are on the other side, which is even more dangerous.
He just knows everything about AI, and he's also a business brain.
I know corporates and boards are busy, but you have to spend time on the ground to understand what will make life better. You have to consume your own products. When last did you chat to your own chatbot? Because they suck.
Yet he knows a hell of a lot about AI.
What AI does is thinking, decisioning, planning, seeing patterns in the data. Don't have an AI strategy, ever. Have a business strategy that may or may not include AI.
We're going to be chatting to him today. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Corner Office, where we bring you the latest news from the world of commercial real estate, the greatest voices in the industry, and the corporate chats you've been missing. Let's get to it.
Lekker, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation because it's AI, and I think everyone's talking about AI at the moment, and I really do think that no one knows what AI means. So every second product that comes out, every person's offering AI in their system or AI in their service or AI everything, but really it's not AI when you look at it. So you've obviously been in this, and I'd love you to tell us, just to start off with, just your background. I mean, you've been doing, I thought AI only sort of came around a couple of years ago, but it's been around for years and years. It's fascinating.
60 years.
60 years. I mean, that is, wow. Yeah. Okay, so I want to say 20. So yeah, let's go back a bit, and how did you start getting into it, and what interested you about it? And I mean, to go back there and be involved in it is fascinating. So yeah, let's start there. Welcome.
Super to be here, John. Like I said to you earlier, I love these videos. I've obviously done my research, so well produced, such great guests and topics.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, 60 years, although it's only the last 20, in particular 10 years, where it's really gained attention because AI is in need of computing power. And we've really only seen over the last decade or so with cloud computing and the like that the computing power is there for AI to really do what it can do.
That makes sense.
And that will keep on exponentially growing with quantum computing and the rest when we look into the future. But for me, it's interesting. I call myself a human-centered AI advocate. And what I mean with that is I'm not totally super excited about AI. Everyone should AI. Let's just AI everything. It is powerful. It's fairly limited. But there are some powerful things that it can do. But I want to focus on the value of humans in this whole journey. Now, it's not kumbaya. It's not Mother Teresa. We have businesses. We need to drive numbers. We've got KPIs. But I would like to believe that we can use this technology to better the work and the lives of people and increase our revenue significantly. And I've already seen it. So my story is about a decade ago. I was working with one of our big banks. Even though I've been in tech most of my life, I've got a management consulting background. We did a proof of concept.
It's a nice sort of juxtaposition of that management consulting and the tech coming together, obviously, in this space. Yeah.
Actually comment on that, because a lot of people in tech are so focused on the tech. Because management consulting teaches you to solve business problems.
Yes.
And I often advocate maybe Excel is what you need. Don't even look at AI. Because we start at the wrong place. We want to have an AI strategy where we don't even know what the business strategy is, but we'll unpack that.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure.
In fact, going back years, we had an idea using our system. We've built a system here, and we wanted to add something to it. We went to a consultant. He said, let's map this out incrementally. Literally every single small little thing that a human will do or that you do to get this done in your spreadsheet, which you're currently doing it in, to produce this document over here. Let's map it out. How do you get that number? Where did you get it from? Did you have to speak to someone? Do you get it from a sheet? Does it pull? Absolutely every step. And then you have your final result. And you say, how much time did that take and how much did that cost from a human perspective? Well, 2 people worked on it. They get paid this. It took up so many of their hours. That's how much it costs. And then you work it back. How many of these are you doing? And how much money or time could you save by doing it from a technology perspective? And if it doesn't equal something significant, don't even start.
I fully agree. And I want to talk to you about something I learned from Elon Musk on that. He talks about de-automating your business. But just to quickly finish the answer. So I worked at a bank a decade ago. We did a proof of concept with AI. It blew my mind. And in the same year, my former wife and I adopted a little baby boy. He was a year and a half old. And that future of this kid and kids like him and where technology is taking us has forever, or since then, been my focus. So I do a lot of work on ethical AI, responsible AI, common sense AI. So there is a business consulting part of what I do. I do a lot of academic and training work, but a lot of almost advocating, maybe a better word is evangelizing. Use a tech, but be super careful. And maybe to your opening statement, everyone now talks about AI and thinks they know what it is. People don't have a clue. I call this the post-ChatGPT world, where we are dumber than we've ever been thinking they can do. And I'll unpack that for you, John.
I just, if I sit and look at AI, okay, and twofold, as we were talking now, let's map the process out. A lot of it is actually automation. And automation is probably something that all of us should have been thinking about a lot more going back over the last decade or even more. Some people have, some people haven't. But automation is actually the almost precursor to getting to AI. Where is your information? What's happening? So what is AI actually? Is it not automate? Where does it step off? Where does it start? It's almost taking information and putting the new information into the system to also give you new answers. It's like, that's how I see it.
It's a brilliant question, because a lot of people I work with are confusing algorithmic automation or software automation, business process automation with AI. Now, business process and software automation has been around for years. So capturing invoices, automating emails, looking at spam messages, just your business, your administrative kind of processes are
declutter.
Absolutely. But what automation does not do, and what AI does, is thinking, decisioning, planning, seeing patterns in the data. And this is going to sound stupid. The best way I can explain it is a coffee machine. And I get this from Yuval Noah Harari, who's an author everyone should read. He's amazing. What I love about him is that he's a philosopher and a historian talking about AI and not a techie. What he says, and think about this.
He wrote Sapiens, right?
Sapiens,
yes.
And Nexus is like,
yes,
yes. Brilliant. These videos are brilliant, among many other voices. But maybe on that point, don't just look at the Microsofts and AWSs and all the great things they all do. I work with them. You need ethicists, philosophers, historians to shape what this tech is, given our 200,000-300,000 year history as Homo sapiens.
Gotcha.
So think of a coffee machine. It's an automation device. It's been programmed or built to press that button, it's a cappuccino, press that button, it's coffee. It's like a traffic light or a robot. I had friends here from the US the other day. What do you mean there's a robot in every car? They don't understand it. Yeah. But a coffee machine is an automation device. Now think of this. And this is maybe a bit of a stupid example, but if a coffee machine could predict my needs, it knows, maybe because of my tag, that I typically walk to the machine at 9 in the mornings for a cappuccino and 3 in the afternoons for a coffee. Now you're in a big corporate, there are 500 coffee machines. They all are connected and talk to each other. And they start seeing our behavior as humans. They auto-procure, so the milk is running low across most machines. They place an order for the delivery people. They're running low on the coffee beans. They, without human involvement, procure. They also book services. And that's obviously a human that services the machine, but they can see from a predictive maintenance point of view, this machine will probably break in the next week or two. But here's the other thing. It's creating novelty. And this is where hyper-personalization comes in, and Netflix is one of the best examples which we can unpack, if you would. It sees from my behavior the kind of coffee flavors I typically order. What if it determines that there's a new flavor of coffee that I most likely will also like? So tomorrow morning I walk in, it knows I'm walking in at that time, and it gives me a coffee I did not order, but that I love. It's based on human behavioral science. And a lot of my clients, I see that they are adding human behavioral science, ethicists and philosophers to their AI teams, which is incredibly important. So AI is the ability to use data to see the future, to predict, to see patterns, and to create new ideas or products, and to create novelty. That is essentially it. And it makes autonomous decisions. Automation does not do that. AI platforms do that. And that's where this kind of scary human-like
yes.
comes in. I hope that coffee machine helps your viewers.
So it makes its own decisions, right? So this is kind of a big point of departure. So it makes its own decisions. You have to, I mean, are there any limitations to the decisions that it can make, or do you have to program that in, or is it just in order to be most efficient, it just goes by itself? Yeah. And how do you limit it from making decisions? Because it's just, I mean, that's the whole point of it, right?
It's such a good question. Of course, you want to limit it because it will make mistakes. We're using data sometimes as businesses that's not accurate. Biases in our data is a big topic, especially in a multicultural environment like in South Africa. There are still biases in the data around ethnicity, gender, and the like. So whether it's a banking system or a procurement or a supply chain system, because we build our biases into the system. It's not because we're bad, it's human nature. So I will build a system that will typically be beneficial for white Caucasian men. But that's why I need a colleague who is not like me to make sure that the things I build, it will also serve them.
Yes.
And rural areas, and especially females and African females, etc. So we have to limit and program the decisions they can make. So I'll give you an example. A use case I worked on about a year ago. And everything I'm going to tell you now had no human involvement. The human involvement was training it, testing it, and the continual human involvement is what we call a human in the loop, because you still need somebody to check now and then that it's not going off the rails.
Yeah.
You get an email from a client. Do you have these products in stock? It extracts the data from the email. Firstly, it pings your CRM system and your finance system. Is this actually a customer? Are they in good standing? Can we sell to them? It pings your legal system or your master services agreement. What are our agreements regarding penalties or bulk discounts? It pings your warehouse. Do we have this in stock? It pings your vendor's warehouse if you have what we call an API call agreement.
Yes.
In other words, we don't have it, but we can get it in 2 days from our vendors.
Yes.
It looks at, from a supply chain point of view, at road situations and conditions, weather conditions. And within a few split seconds, it returns the email saying, we have 3 in stock. Remember, if you buy 4, you get a 25% discount. We can get the 4th one in 2 days. Seeing where you are geographically, we can probably deliver it at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. Click here to order. And then it raises the PO, it raises the invoice. Obviously, in the warehouse, humans still pack the stuff. But that whole process happens without human involvement. The limits are on what discount do we give it, when do we want to deliver it, and so forth. But
Incredible.
the decisioning is almost incremental. But just to answer your question, no, you don't want to just give it free rein because it's crazy.
Got to be some limits.
Kill your business.
Yeah. Or not. Or it could expand your business, but you've got to be there, a human in the loop, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we did a deep dive with some logistics professors and CEOs of DHL and ex-CEOs of Unilever and really, really gifted logistics minds. And we spent a week learning from them. They gave us kind of an advanced training program on logistics. I had no idea how completely confusing and absolutely detailed logistics is. They are working to the minute.
Yes.
Literally. They literally look at the shelf and they'll talk about which is the best machine from a charge point of view, from a cost point of view, from do you need a driver? Can you fit 2 in the aisle to put this stock where? If it's a high moving piece of stock, it goes lower down. If it's stock that moves slow, it goes higher up. Which machines do we use, and do we drop them at the end of the aisle and then a bigger machine comes to pick up? It is completely detailed in so much as how much you can, when you drive, like the revs that you should be maintaining and the drivers and the points for those drivers. They get paid more if they maintain so many revs when they drive, et cetera, et cetera. And it really completely changes the game from a profitability perspective. Now, take all of that learning, and I suppose this is exactly what needs to happen, right? If you're modeling a human being on the best, so you want the best human being, the best logistics minds in the world to come in, and then you create this AI being to effectively run the similar operations, take the same decisions as that human made. And I know that you're quite involved in doing exactly this, taking the top level executives and then modeling their decision matrix. How does something like that work? And do you find that once the decision-making tree is built, that it starts to gain on it? It starts to say, well, actually, I understand what you're doing and I can gain on what you're saying. Exactly. Do you see that?
Absolutely. Again, the difference between automation won't gain, won't learn. It's pretty good.
Yes.
But the AI should learn from the data. Remember, I mean, supply chain is such a good example. For instance, especially if you deliver perishables to a Woolies or a Checkers, because they give you a 15-minute time frame to deliver the goods at the warehouse, or they turn you back and there are penalties involved. Understandably so. So planning, the packing, the treatment, the truck, the cooling in the truck, which driver, where to go. The big thing that AI is very good at is at situations that change, variables. Because what do we do if there's a big accident on the N1 and we need new routes?
Sure.
Can we still get there in that 15-minute time frame? Do we need to pick another driver coming back from another location? Now, humans can do it. It takes us time. The problem we have is a lot of times our teams are very federated, so we don't share brain power and learning amongst each other.
Yes.
The ideal of these algorithms is that that knowledge base sits in one system, and it can automatically, because it picks up there's a problem on the N1 and it autonomously reschedules and redirects the trucks or contacts the customer and say, if we're an hour late, is it still acceptable to take our goods? Well, the way I start with business leaders is to try and dissuade them from using AI. And I know it sounds weird. In the past, people were very afraid of it. A lot of it had to do with Hollywood, movies, robots, killer robots, and stuff. Now, in what I call a post-ChatGPT world, we are on the other side, which is even more dangerous, overestimating its abilities, AIing everything. A lot of the times it comes from the top. The CEO went to Silicon Valley or went to a conference, and now it comes down, start AIing stuff. And where we don't often in teams even know our basic the work we need to do. And I always talk about that TV series, The Undercover Boss. If you can remember it. They disguise the CEO and send him or her to work in the field or on the factory floor. The biggest reason why these initiatives fail is because we make high-level decisions normally influenced by big consulting firms without any clue of what the people are actually doing, and it's a spreadsheet decision. And it negatively impacts them. I mean, just the other day, I was at an investment bank here in Johannesburg, the HR team. They have been forced by the board to use this new AI tool in HR. Now, we know there are many benefits around going through hundreds of thousands of CVs, scheduling interviews, onboarding, learning and development. But what they told me is it now takes them 3 times longer to do their work with this new AI tool because the oak at the top who made the decision never spent time with what they actually do. So don't start with AI. Don't have an AI strategy, ever. Have a business strategy that may or may not include AI.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
So, and I blame you, and I've worked for some of them, and they are wonderful people. The large consulting firms come in, especially with our big banks, big telcos, and they paint this picture because what is their business model? They want to bring 45 consultants for the next 15 years to implement this stuff, and it shows no business.
Yeah.
It's a common sense approach. It might not be technology. If we're not sure of what's the problem we're trying to solve, aligned to business strategy, we will make technological decisions that's hugely costly. Just quickly, maybe to end this answer, if you go on an AI journey, I'm not disputing the huge benefits. The cycle is, initially, it is a lot more costly than you thought it would be. It takes a lot more time, and it has an impact on your business, probably negatively. People fear their jobs, etc., that you cannot imagine. And in time, that curve comes down, the cost comes down if you do it right. That's why change management and legal and HR needs to be
critical, yeah.
And then you start getting economies of scale and people are adopting it. But that first year or two will probably break your business if you don't do it right. And a lot of business leaders don't realize that.
How much skill is there in the market? You're talking here, you've got a lot of expertise in this subject, and we're talking about it being expensive. It's expensive because the developers and people who understand it are expensive because there's huge global demand for it. But I'm assuming that there are very few people who actually understand what they're building.
Yeah, look, we have limited talent in our country, although we do have some of the best people. And I always say what people don't realize is there's a lot more happening with AI in the Western Cape than in Gauteng. A lot more. There are some startups in like Stellenbosch working with the university, there in Technopark across Blauklip and my wine farm. I mean, there are some people that will kick the ass of anyone in Silicon Valley.
Really?
But funding and scale is their challenge because we have such a limited market. We also have very little involvement from government or governmental agencies. And that's the problem is they find better jobs overseas. So we have a lot of great internship and talent development programs in our country, but we lose almost all of them because they can earn so much. Or they don't even have to go overseas. If they're willing to deal with the time differences, they just stay here.
Which most developers are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do have this. The problem is because of that, now we bring in a lot of talent from India and the Philippines. And a lot of these vendors don't transfer skills and train. They deliver what they need to deliver. Obviously, try and stay there for 50 more years. And that's the way we procure and contract with these international organizations is flawed because of that. I do some work in townships and in rural areas with upskilling. And the smart kids I meet every now and then blows my mind. They don't have electricity. They often don't eat. They walk 20 kilometers to school. A lot of them live in very horrible, gender-based, violent kind of homes. And I'm talking about 80% of our kids in this country. 80% of our kids have not eaten today yet. Okay, so you and I sit here in Rosebank. We have no clue. We are 3% of, the world population.
Yeah.
So now the schools are all trying to teach robotics and coding for kids who haven't eaten yet. So the skills we need is a massive topic, but I don't see enough being done by business and government and to retain those skills. We have the brain power. We have those kids who are hungry, are smart like you cannot believe it.
Just almost don't want to get started on this subject. It annoys me so much. Yeah. It's where all the investment should be. Should be in education. I mean, literally, that should be the whole.
Let me go in education. I'm going to hijack this podcast.
Yeah,
it sucks.
It really does. It really, really does. I mean, the policies of this country, in my opinion, should just angle funding towards education. We would be incredible. Honestly, it would be a really incredible country.
You're right.
And
skills, the talent. But we also need societal things around the hunger, the violence, the distance from schools, etc. So holistic, but then the skills as well. Why I say education sucks. So I have an 11-year-old. We do homework almost every night.
Yeah.
I'm aghast at the crap that are in the books that he needs to learn. We all went through it. Schooling is based on memorizing nonsense, regurgitating it in an exam, and then forgetting it tomorrow. So we are now using AI. So in the evenings, we sit with ChatGPT. I've got the app on my phone that we speak to. And my son tells me about what he's struggling with maths or whatever. And by the way, his school bag is more heavy than mine was when I was 18. It's scary. And then the AI, so what I tell the AI is, obviously I prompted to say he's 11, so speak at his level. We're talking about this topic, but do not give him the answers. And I always ask, use the Socratic methods. In other words, guide him through figuring it out himself. This thing is doing wonders for him, but he won't learn it in school. And most kids out there don't even have smartphones or connectivity.
Going to steal that idea right now.
No, and I always say I proudly let him cheat on his homework because it's all nonsense.
Yes.
We ask ChatGPT, we have a Google Home device. He say, hey, Google, how do I spell chameleon? Oh, blah. Because I'd rather him be digitally fit and responsible than memorizing crap, which is what school is.
Yeah, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and the main search at the moment is, what does a dead shark look like? I don't know. Bizarre, you know? Anyway, I'm going to teach her how to use a ChatGPT. I love that. It's brilliant. It's the only app. If I give her a phone, it's the only app she can have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to limit it.
Yeah. So in terms of sort of building out, and you talk about business strategy, where rather go and work out what you want to do as a business and then back solve into what you're doing. What are you seeing? And I don't know, I mean, if you don't know, you can say I don't know, but in real estate, what are we seeing as the movers in AI? On one side, you could see the deeds office trying to incorporate that. That would be great. Mm-hmm. But where are you seeing the real estate industry starting to adopt AI?
So I'm going to give you a 2-part answer. The first part is irrespective of the business you're in or the industry you are in, start with your back office. Every business has a finance function, probably a legal or compliance function, a supply chain of sorts, or the stuff that it doesn't matter whether you're a law firm or a property firm or a bank, there's stuff that you need to do. The best place to start is in finance and in HR, because the amount of use cases, because think of this, finance takes a lot of work. It normally takes a big team. There's a lot of repetition around invoice capturing, like RFPs, procurement. So the whole procure to pay cycle.
This conversation is so live at the moment.
Good. My invoice off.
CFO says to us, we're going to have to hire another person here. And no, we are not. There must be a solution out there that means we don't have to hire another person, because we can do this better, faster. Like let's put our heads together, come up with an idea.
Exactly. Now, look, there are things that the AI can't do that an experienced human can do, and that's the Elon Musk thing that I'd love to speak to before we end.
Yes.
But start with your back office, start with finance and HR. That's the first place to start. That's also where you kind of grind your teeth a little bit on this technology, and it could be automation and not AI.
Yes.
A lot of your finance functions can be automated without it being AI. But then from a real estate point of view, one of the best things I've seen being adopted is what we call IoT, or the Internet of Things, or
yes,
computing.
Habitat type of.
Yeah, but things like, so for instance, I spoke with a very large property management company. They are one of the largest in our country. Wonderful people. And they said this to me, and my jaw dropped.
You must introduce them to us.
Okay, right. But you'll know the name, but I won't mention it. So what they said is, and this is more when we had a lot more power failures, which I still don't believe is really over, but in any case, it's better. But they obviously, in all of their buildings, whether it's office buildings or their malls, etc., they have generators. And what they said is, we constantly run out of fuel, and then we need to procure the fuel, and then the generator is down for an hour or two. And I looked at them and I said, have you not heard of the Internet of Things? Have a sensor that measures the fuel level and not just gives you a report and now you have to quickly procure. You can set it up to automatically procure the next delivery of fuel given on the run rate, because certain days of the week, because it's colder, maybe it uses more fuel to generate and light up the heaters. And you can do this over your 1,000 properties across the country. They did not know that it's possible. And this is stuff that you could do 20 years ago, probably.
Wow.
So from a maintenance point of view, there's a lot of benefits there. The deeds, the documentation, the contracting is highly automatable already. Even planning for new facilities or building, looking at satellite imagery, looking at population movement, looking if you contract with a bank to sell you their data, which they will do and they should do anonymously. But I know there's a lot of our big shopping centers or our big retailers are working with some of our banks to see your higher spender or your higher income people, if they typically drive 20 kilometers to go buy food at a Spar or Pick n Pay, and there's 1,000 of them, maybe we should build a new Spar or Pick n Pay here. So it's using that data, that behavioral patterns.
Love that. So the gap analysis. Yeah?
Exactly. I also see it from a societal point of view, especially when you have informal settlements. And if you constantly have satellite imagery on how that informal settlement is growing, it might be, if it's near a mine, for instance, and the mine dams, which are a big danger if that dam bursts, to see the population is growing that way, and to work with the community to say, and we're going to incentivize you to rather grow that way.
Yes.
Also, maybe because the ability to give you the facilities around water provisioning and the like is easier here than if you move that way. So that there's a great benefit for a society there, for instance. So there are many use cases there. The other thing is competitor analysis. What are your competitors doing? What aspects of the market are they tapping into? If you look at their data, their press releases and the like, and also to use your client's data. And that's where that good client relationship is important. Think of just people who rent out, the complexes we live in. The amount of things you can automate around billing, collection, reconciliation of the statements, but also look at things that will make life better for people living in those complexes and so forth. I mean, I can go on about this forever, but
I think that's, and sort of crossing over to Elon, and I want you to chat to us about this. There are two interesting things, and why he's been so successful. He tries to create a better life for humanity. So that's one of the first ideas, and has obviously had huge success.
Yeah.
On the other side, he mentions that his approach to engineering is always to be a reductive process. What can you remove from the system as opposed to how do we improve what's here? And once you start removing, then you say, well, we don't need that anyway. We could do it like this. It could be shortened, which is a brilliant way to think about not only engineering, he's speaking about engineering, but it's actually a message for business at the same time. Often we look at systems that we have in place, information that we're tracking, reports that we give to the leaders. Do we need all of these? Just remove them.
No one asks that question.
Just get rid of this thing. And then what happens? Oh, God, we definitely need that one part of it. Great, we bring it back. And I think that's what you need to do is tinker around with the things that you can actually remove from a business. But to sit as the leadership of the business, you've mentioned, and I want to go back to Elon, so let's not drop that.
Okay.
When you sit as the leadership of the business, you've got to sit and say, this is what we're trying to solve for. So that you ideate yourselves. Then how do you start to think about automate? Do you think about automation first and then AI? Or how do you start to think about it? Because I think you have the benefit of being a management consultant, and whenever I say that and coming back to what you said earlier, I don't know if you've ever seen those memes where all of a sudden all these 911s start driving around the corner as your management consultants after leaving a business to say increase revenue and cut costs, you know? So I always think of that when I think of management consultants. But you have the benefit of thinking about the business, but also understanding the capability of AI. But how does our business start to think about it? And all of the other businesses, how do they start to think about it? Where do you start?
Look, so people need to educate themselves. So executive education around what is this tech, what can it do or not is a big thing.
And where is that? What are the resources?
Look, so a lot of our universities have executive educational offerings. I do a lot of work with our smaller, privately owned tertiary educational institutions. The challenge there is a lot of these lecturers and course designers are brilliant lecturers, but they've literally never implemented AI. So they teach what you can Google.
Yeah.
So use somebody who's done the work, but who can teach, because often the tech is you can't teach. They lock them in the door and give them pizza under the door kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's rare to find people who, and I often say, and I'm one of many, I'm definitely not unique in that, because I'm not technical. I'm dumb enough to understand the business case before I start freaking out about AI and using AI. So business leaders need to educate themselves, not become experts. But what does it mean when you say machine learning or AI or IoT or cloud? Because the vendors throw those terms around to confuse you. Understand the basics. If you're an HR leader, understand the basics around your domain. If you're in legal or supply chain. But the biggest reason why it fails is because the execs are too far removed from where the action is happening. And that's coming back to the undercover boss. We're making decisions based on consultants and on a webinar or whatever. That makes no difference. What I love about Undercover Boss is that every one of those episodes bomb me out.
Yeah.
Firstly, there are things happening on the ground that you at an executive level will never know about. And again, this should be edited out if it's not allowed. Every corporate level to the board is what I call a bullshit layer.
Yes.
Because everyone's covering their ass as they're reporting up. So what you get in your board pack is you have to be very careful whether it's true or not. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and now on that limited data, we're making decisions around technology. So, and I know corporates and boards are busy, but you have to spend time on the ground to understand what will make life better. The other thing that happens, you not only see the problems, there are phenomenal, life-changing ideas in the heads of people who you will never speak to because you're on the board or exec that will revolutionize your business.
Are you advocating for the please call me guy?
For the what?
Please call me guy.
No.
Yeah.
No, I've been following. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So I'll give you an example. This is in the public domain. Was it in the last year, Nedbank appointed a new CEO. He came from ABSA.
Yeah.
And what my friends at Nedbank told me, and I think it's been publicized as well, and I love this. You know what he did on his very first day as CEO of Nedbank? He went to a branch to open an account. No one knew he was the CEO, the new CEO. And apparently then already he saw that there's stuff they needed to do. Because I ask my banking clients, the execs, when last did you go to a branch on a Saturday? Because they never do.
Be the customer.
You see consume your own products.
Yeah.
When last did you chat to your own chatbot? Because they suck. Last did you phone your own contact center? And I will tell you a quick story.
Yeah. It's like Bezos. Bezos did that. He found his own contact center.
Musk does it as well. He's on the floor.
Yeah.
But I went, my biggest customer is one of our banks, and I'm also their client, although not their biggest client.
Yeah.
But, so I know what their chatbot and their call center is like. So I had a meeting with the retail banking leadership team. A lot of use cases around AI and automation. They're already doing some of it. But I thought I'm going to take a chance here, but it was risky. So when the meeting started, there were 12 of them around the boardroom. I said, do you mind if I make a quick call? They said, okay. So I phoned their contact center and I put my phone on speaker. And we waited 45 minutes. So we never had a meeting.
Wow.
They were aghast. And you know why? Because they never phoned their own contact center. They never chat to their own chatbot. So you have to consume your own products and not just rely. The techies are going to tell you it's amazing.
It's such a good message. I mean, I always say when we have a new broker, deal maker start here, I say start by being your own customer. How do they get to you? They're going to go to our website, right? Or they might go to Property 24 or one of these things and they're going to submit a lead. Try and get to you. Try and start that. And they go and they look at their stock. Ooh, they go through their stock on the website. Oh, it doesn't look good and it's not a good picture. I said, exactly. That's what your client's saying. Go and change it. Go and be the customer. And I think it's so important to do that at least once a month.
Absolutely. Send an email to your info@email address and see how long it takes for anyone to pick it up and reply. It's probably going to worry you.
Should I send an email to join us at Galetti and see? I said the other because we got these two email addresses, connect with us and join us. And I was putting out a post for CFO. Our CFO's gone to a more sort of work from home, flexible environment. And so we need a new CFO in the business. I put this post out and said, what email address do I use? And it was this joint, well, there was a big conversation with connect with us or join with us. And who gets these emails? And I was like, oh my God. And this is for our business, one of the biggest things in business is talent. Yes. It's the number one thing we look at. And so that email address almost needs to be the hottest email address in the one that you respond to immediately.
Yes. And you can automate the emails coming in and the priorities, etc. But let's just kind of circle back to what you asked me. So the exec should be close enough to where the action's happening to make the right decisions. They should be familiar with this technology at a business level. They should use the right vendors and experts. Expertise, like we said earlier, is difficult. But your problem's answer is not always technology. So don't start with where can we use AI or automation. So I'll give you an example. Last week I spoke with a contact center, large contact center. They work 24-hour shifts or shifts around 24 hours. And when I actually sat down with some of the staff members, just coffee, relaxing, T-shirts, because they don't want to speak to consultants. They know they're going to get The restroom for females are 200 meters away, and for the men is 100 meters away. And it's in a dangerous area. So for them to feel safe working at night, it's not good, especially for the women, that the toilet is so far away.
Sure.
So as an AI expert, my recommendation was print a flippant toilet closer, man. It's common sense.
Yeah.
Don't start with AI.
Yeah.
Because you'll make stupid decisions.
Yes.
Super stupid decisions.
Yeah.
The story I love telling, I'm going to be quick, John, if you don't mind. Hospital group asked me to help them automate the front desks of the hospitals. A lot of hospitals around the country. Any front desk, any reception area is highly automatable because it's lower value tasks, very administrative. So I said to this exec team, have you actually spoken to these people whose jobs you want to automate? Can you guess what they said? No, of course not.
Wow.
They don't even know what these people do. So I said, I'll only help you if you give them the permission to spend 3 hours with them, coffee, relaxing. So in the main hospital, the head office, we had coffee. There's a lot of stuff tech can do. And this is the dumbest story I ever tell, but I always tell this in all my public talks. I do about 3 a week. The biggest problem they had is that the printer was too far from them. And what they said is whenever a patient comes into the hospital, on average, they walk to the printer 3 times. So the next week, I met with the board and with my recommendation, and I literally had 1 page with big font. And my recommendation was bring the printer closer.
Bring the printer closer.
And a lot of my clients are now doing this. They say whenever they think about new technology, they filter it through the bring the printer closer.
Yeah.
So the principle is, what is the most common sense way of fixing a problem that your staff is dealing with because you're involved with them. And it may or may not be technology. And that's where this AI conversation goes haywire. We start with AI and great and ChatGPT, everything. AI would not know the printer's the problem. The board would not know because they never go down there. But
it's limited to the data that you have.
And not data, it's common sense.
Yeah.
AI will never leave us or release us from that human-to-human interaction, that intuition, that care for one another. And I know it's a business, it's not a church or a shul or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I see as AI gets more powerful, bad leadership will have more and more of their bad leadership revealed because we're lazy and want the AI to do everything.
Yes.
And people will give us the middle finger. They will resist all of these initiatives because they feel threatened, they don't feel safe.
Yeah. You got to be careful. It's interesting. I mean, like you're saying, it gives you momentum on the direction. So if you're headed in the wrong direction, it's going to get you there a lot faster. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I wanted to, talking about ChatGPT, which is basically a large language model, okay? And it can answer you in natural speech and or any way you want it, really. If you wanted to answer you like Rudyard Kipling, it probably will. Yeah. But what I understand of it is that effectively what it does is it's a vector database that numbers sequences of words effectively, and then it looks for sequences of words that are similar to the sequences or the numbers that it's generated in the question that you asked it. Can you explain that?
Exactly.
It sounds fascinating.
So it's prediction. So look, it's obviously built on billions of data sets. And that's where the whole copyright issue comes in, because the New York Times will sue OpenAI and say, you've used all of our newspapers of articles from the last 10 years, or Penguin or others, because they suck in all this data. And remember, they don't really think like we as humans do. They predict, and fairly accurately, what the next word should be given what you've asked them. We are seeing in what we call reasoning models these days, and most of these platforms have it, where you'll see if you prompt something in ChatGPT, it quickly gives you the answer. But if you use the 4.0 model, for instance, it'll take a little bit of time. It shows you what it's doing. It's thinking. Especially
if you ask it deep research, then it's really going to take some time.
But the stuff it gives you is amazing, but it is predicting. I use a number of modules. I use OpenAI. I'm on the paid-for platform because it's incredible. But I have to use it wisely and have to double check what it tells me. I use Perplexity because it's great for research, any kind of research, white papers, etc. I use DeepSeek from China. It is probably the best model out there. And then people say, but do you really want to send your data to China? And my question is, but do I really want to send it to Silicon Valley? So I don't. Yeah. That's why you never give these open platforms confidential information, IP, so for ideas, writing proposals, etc. The best thing to use is something like Microsoft's Copilot. And there are others, because it's ring-fenced. It's only taking the data in your business to produce proposals, look at insights, etc. It doesn't go out there to the internet for somebody to steal it. And it's imperfect, but it's hugely powerful. So the thing with these modules is to use it, the right ones for the right reasons. But you cannot underestimate the business risk if you put confidential stuff into something like
Really, Interesting.
They have been hacked. I mean, there was maybe a year ago now, and they constantly improve themselves. A year ago, if you went onto ChatGPT, you could actually see other users who are also online. There was one instance where you could see certain people's billing details, the credit card details, Dave.
Wow.
Because there are hacks, the things go wrong. Do you want to put your staff list or your customer list or your latest IP innovation into ChatGPT? You never should.
Okay, so that's Copilot. Noted.
Copilot, and others. But just make sure it's secure and it's limited to only your business. And it can't go out.
Yes, got you.
And that's where training comes in. Teach your staff to use the right models for the right reasons.
You were talking, to go back to Elon, you were saying, you mentioned he had an idea of...
The automation. So his biography by Walter Isaacson, which probably came out November a year ago. And Isaacson also wrote the biography on Steve Jobs. And he's often on CNN. It's a great book. And the book is called Elon Musk, obviously. It's about 300 or 400 pages. It's quite a read. What I like about the book is he had total access to Elon Musk, his team, his family, his business. And the agreement was also that Elon Musk and co. was not to see the transcript and need to approve it. So it was a totally honest view of Elon Musk. And there's a lot of good things. I mean, the stuff is done, the brilliance, etc. But there are also some stuff there about how horribly narcissist he is. I mean, he's probably the worst guy you can ever work for.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, do you only reach that level of success if you're an absolute probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in the middle of the book, there's a story that changed my view of the way I help customers.
Yes.
And just briefly, so on this Tesla production line, which is probably one of the most automated factories in the world, the electrical cars, these gigafactories, almost everything is done by robots, robot arms, and so forth. One day, Elon Musk was walking the floor. He is an undercover boss. That's why he successfully asks every engineer what you're doing. And also he knows more than most of his engineers, which doesn't happen in businesses. But toward the end of the line, the car was stuck and the whole production line was standing still. He went to them and he said, what's happening? And they said, there's this robotic arm that attaches a bolt to the frame of the car. The arm is broken, so we're waiting for the people to come and fix it. And he said, so how much is this robotic arm? If I remember correctly, it's about $300,000. And he said, how long does it take the arm to attach this bolt? And I think they said about 20 seconds. And this is why I love him. He said, give me a wrench. So he took the wrench and he was able to attach that thing to the car in 5 seconds or something like that. And then he mandated everyone on this production line to look for phases of the production where it's cheaper and quicker for a human to do the job, and not for a robot or a robotic arm. And he calls it his de-automation strategy. And that's what I tell my clients. Again, whether it's the finance function or HR, where don't automate end to end. There are elements where it is not just cheaper to use a human rather than $1 million a year thing. They do it quick. And also, you can't AI 30 years of experience.
But also, to your point, is to have the human in the loop.
You have to.
You know, it is that intervention. It is that point. So automate human. So
alleviate humans from the they should never have done.
Yes.
The reporting, the repetitive stuff. And get us to a point where we use our intuition, our knowledge, our relationships, our gut to help the business, to help customers. That's really what an automation strategy should be.
Recently, we've been using, Kate discovered this system called Motion. She's going to laugh now because she raps on about it constantly. But it's fascinating what they've built. And effectively, it's just it takes meeting notes, just like the rest of the meeting notes. Now you can't get into a conference call without 50 note takers joining you. But it takes the notes, it comes up with the tasks. It then goes into your task board. You allocate the tasks to different people. It puts it in their diaries. If they finish the task early, it just pulls another one forward. It almost automates your diary. It makes you a superhuman, super efficient. Auction is like a process line. Unlike broking or advisory or any of these, which are nuanced and need some understanding, auction is like a process line. Literally, the property comes in and you order the boards up, you set the marketing up, you get the packs ready, you take it to market, and so the brokers bring the property in, they give it to operations give it back to they take it to market, it lands on auction day, it sells or doesn't sell, next. It's sort of finite. So as a property comes in, you've already set the project up with these different things that need to happen. Put it in there, there's a task assigned, it allocates it in people's diaries. If the timelines change, the mandate arrives later, the board guys are later, you just move it and it changes the whole project.
Amazing.
You sit there and you're just going, wow.
You know, this now, John, is now that people who work here can actually see the benefit to their day-to-day work. They get excited about it, where initially people will resist because they fear, what if it replaces me?
Yes.
Now they actually think, I enjoy my job more. I don't do the 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday report for the Monday morning. And that's why that automation strategy, you have to know the work your people do and you have to phase it. And we cannot underestimate people's resistance if we don't do it right. But I mean, you've now mentioned something amazing and you are still only scratching the surface of what this tech can do. Literally. But it's a great start. Yeah. And maybe in a year from now, it's still only what you need. So go on AI stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever, you know?
Agree. So coming back to, and this is looping all the way back to the government and what we're doing locally from an investment into AI. Are you seeing any investment from larger corporations, government, just those funding and those, I don't want to call them bursaries, but just investment into the space? Because it's, given where South Africa is, given the strength of our currency, et cetera, it seems like such a brilliant space to almost leapfrog. We've missed the opportunity on pretty much anything. Let's get into AI. And you could just do it and invest in that space. And we see a little bit of it in Stellenbosch, but are you seeing it at all?
Yeah, so leapfrog is the word. We are so far behind. And like we said earlier, we do have the talent. The problem is the funding and scaling it. A lot of our universities are doing very good work, albeit limited. But think of this. We are now in what they call the fourth industrial revolution, which is a horrible way to talk about it. We're already on the cusp of the fifth. We are struggling with first industrial revolution challenges. The production and distribution of electricity. Functioning rail network. This is stuff that Europe did in the 17 and 1800s. So we also have to bring in our societal and our real issues alongside this leapfrogging AI stuff. And it's there where we're struggling because, stuff is just falling apart. I spoke to somebody who's quite a high official in local government a while back. And what he said to me, and this really kind of was a wake-up call for me, they have a 600 million rand fund allocated for AI initiatives by South African companies that helps with rural areas, quality of life, healthcare, etc. So it's a great initiative. 2 years now, they've not done anything with the money. The reason is because they can't find reputable, capable, and non-corrupt local entities to do the work. So think of it. Here is a dam of water. Here are thirsty people. There's no pipeline. And this happens in a lot of things more than just technology. That's the problem.
Wow.
There are pockets in some of our government institutions that are doing phenomenal work. The Department of Home Affairs, and especially with the new minister, they've got a massive backlog. He was on the radio the other day. They're actually sending people to prison now. Because what do? We suspend you for the next 5 years and you get your salary. No, they take people to prison, but they're also bringing AI-related stuff to help us increase the pace of renewal of passports and so forth. So there are things happening. It's not in the news because we don't report on good stuff. We report on the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But if we could scale it exponentially, it would be great. I'm not negative about our country, but whether it'll actually happen, I sadly doubt. We are not even a third world country anymore. And I live here and I'll never want to move because I can't move anywhere. I don't have a passport to go to Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
I want to live here and make a difference. And there are a lot of people doing great things, but to change our whole society, given how the government's operating, and it's not about a comment on our government or not, it probably will never happen.
But you can also see, yes. And at the same time, it just takes one person at the right leadership level to drive this change. You look at Singapore and you look at countries like that who's taken themselves from nowhere. 20 years later, bang, they were world power.
Now look at. Sorry to interrupt you. Look at Starlink. It's in the news now again.
Yes.
Visit. Connectivity is one of our big problems because of our geography and our infrastructure lack. So something like Starlink would revolutionize what we do in schools, education, etc. What was the biggest problem? Musk didn't want to give X% of his business to BEE.
Yes.
Now they want to compromise on it, but it's just that structure is so corrupt. And I always say to my boy, because my boy is black, he's adopted. And you talk a lot about apartheid and what I grew up with. And
yes.
I just say to him, the problem we have is for me, and this is not to hijack this conversation, we'll get back to AI. The wealth went from a minority of white people to a minority of black people. And the masses out there has not seen the benefit yet. It's fundamentally corrupt.
Sure.
And whether AI and tech can fix that problem, I don't know. You know what would be great? Blockchain in government procurement, because it's totally traceable. There's almost no corruption, but they don't talk about it because it will not fill their pockets.
You see, it's sad that it's a culture. It's leadership, it's culture, leadership. Exactly. Yeah, as with anything. The last two things I want to chat about. The first one is, are there different, obviously there are the language models, and what are the different aspects of AI, or if there were sort of 4 different quadrants, what are those quadrants and which one is really moving? At the moment, obviously the language models are really gaining traction, but what are the other movers out there?
Yeah, look, the other big thing, so language is big, and translating. And I often translate my stuff into Afrikaans or my friends into Zulu on ChatGPT and other platforms, and it is 99% accurate, even with the nuances. So it's incredible. And for a chatbot to on the fly speak to you in Zulu, given what LLMs can do, is incredible.
Yeah.
The other thing is around vision, computer vision. And that's what self-driving cars do. They know it's a pedestrian. They, for instance, know through machine learning that that's a stop sign, but also it's a stop sign in the dark, it's a stop sign on its side. And that's all these Tesla cars teach each other, like I said, with the coffee machines, theoretically. So computer vision, that's also extracting information from documents and making sense of it. But to see the physical world, and I guess in the property space, especially around planning, and even the building of property is where computer vision plays a role. There are apps on your mobile phone. If you have a square block of bricks, you point it to that app and it can very accurately determine how many bricks are in that heap. So imagine what it can do from a planning and a planning. I know people locally who are doing a lot of their property planning, the drawings and stuff through AI.
Yes.
And it's very good and very accurate. And
I can imagine,
As a computer, so language, computer vision, but industries where it'll keep on playing a big role is education and in healthcare. So in healthcare, probably those are the two things that makes me excited about AI rather than feeling Orwellian about it, which I normally do. Okay?
Yeah.
The problem with education is it's built on something that we developed 200 years ago. We're developing factory workers who does the same job every day over and over again. No room for improvement, creative thinking. And that's why our schooling system is based on memorizing stuff. In the information age where everything we've ever done as humans, ever thought about, ever written is at the tip of my finger on my smartphone, why should I memorize stuff? I should learn to learn, and I should learn to make sense of the data or the history or whatever. So I think fundamentally education will change. My view is that our universities, most of them globally, but especially in this country, most will not exist in a decade from now.
It would be
the biggest blessing we ever got, because they're a bunch of arrogant academics who's lost, not all of them, because there are some brilliant ones, but who has lost sense of time and practicality. Some of our research institutions will survive. But I always tell my son, when you are 18 today, don't tell me you want to go study a BA because you don't know what to do with your life at 200,000 Rand a year while you smoke dope.
Yeah.
No, you're going to do a job and you do short course. I think I'm not against education.
Yes.
The university structure will have to change.
Yes.
But just quickly touching on healthcare it's like breast cancer scans, prostate, lung scans and other things, or even testing the hearing and the sight of people. There are so many great, cheap or free applications to do it. So for instance, a good friend of mine, Dr. Catherine Malherbe at Tuckies, she's a breast cancer researcher. You know that what she told me, globally, about 2 out of 8 women will get breast cancer. In our country, it's 2 out of 3, and they will probably all die. It's a bigger killer than HIV or violence or murder, but no one speaks about it. And the problem in our rural areas, that the cost to have that mammography equipment and to have doctors who can do it, it's non-existent. So they have a handheld scanner. And I always laugh at it because I'm a guy, what the hell do I know about breasts? But they scan the breast and it connects to their mobile phone to the cloud, and they have an immediate, very accurate diagnosis of whether there's something malignant or what. And then they obviously go through the counseling process and look at treatment, etc. That's where AI plays a big role.
Incredible.
AI, a lot of kids in our schools are not deaf or blind, but they struggle with hearing or sight. No one knows it, so they fall behind. So maybe they should sit closer to the blackboard. Maybe the teachers need to speak, but we don't know. The kind of benefits from a healthcare and a longevity point of view is immense.
Even just trend in terms of all the information, everyone going to the doctors and whatever, it can notice trends. It can notice, hang on, this is happening with all of these people, and then this happens,
Predict the next pandemic.
Yes.
Or maybe the air quality or the water quality in the area is problematic, hence certain symptoms. And we can do it. We've got the data. But whether we use it from a government point of view, but the benefits are immense. The risks are even more, but let's start with the benefits.
God, it's such a vast subject. It really, really is, there's just so much, you almost feel an inertia to just, which one do I start with? How exciting. What an exciting subject. And it just feels like you're in such a great space. So personally, you must just feel like you're fulfilling your life.
I do feel it as a calling, if you will, but I'm highly frustrated because I know what it can do and can't do. But and this is, if I can leave you guys with this, let's treat this and other subjects as parents, as countrymen, as people who want to do good, because that's innately human. I want one day when I'm dead and my son is 30 or 40 or whatever, to look back and say, my dad, in his small little way, did what he could. He wasn't asleep at the wheel, but we have a better life than we would have had if he wasn't involved in AI and others like him. Yeah. That's what keeps me up at night.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's been such a fascinating chat. I mean, I could sit here for another hour, but
John, I appreciate
I know you do all this public speaking. I mean, I was just reading through your CV and all of the education that you give away to everyone for free. It's brilliant. And yeah, so thank you for spending time with us. It's been a fascinating chat, and yeah, lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks.